Welcome to Fair Go, your favourite podcast about building a better tomorrow. A podcast by the people, for the people, where we share small business stories from the business owners themselves. When you encounter unfair obstacles that are too hard to overcome on your own, remember, you don't have to do it alone. Together we can rebuild our great Southland and make Australia proud again. Join us today at fairbusinessaustralia.com.au. Welcome to another episode of Fair Go, a podcast by the people, for the people. I have with me today Fiona, who is the co-owner of Bar Wunder. Bar Wunder is a retro live music and bar venue hailing from Toowoomba. Fiona, hello. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start off telling me a little bit about yourself and your business journey? Like, how did Bar Wunder actually come to be the wonderful bar and retro venue that it is?
Well, it started 3.5 years ago. My partner and I was a freelance writer and he was a sound engineer, and we used to do a little sausage truck at markets, and one day we decided we might want to turn that into like a hole in the wall kind of experience instead of just doing markets. And so we went and looked at some spaces and we found this building that our landlord had just taken on, and it was big enough to be a giant bar, and we thought, stuff this hole in the wall idea, let's make it into a bar music venue so he can use his sound engineering skills again. And I'm also a huge animal lover, and it had a big area at the back, so we turned that into a dog friendly beer garden.
Oh my gosh. So it actually runs during the day as well as the night time?
Yeah, people bring their dogs for dinner. So we've had over 2,000 dogs visit us since we've been open, and we've got a dog wall of fame. So every dog that comes, we take its photo and put them on the wall. So people get to visit their dogs on the wall every time they come and visit. And we have dog beer and dog treats. So yeah, it's very animal friendly because I'm a passionate animal lover.
Oh my goodness, that's cool. I did not know anything about Bar Wunder. That's awesome. Can you explain, I wasn't going to ask you this question today, but can you talk me a little bit through the decor, because I'm desperate to know what it actually looks like inside.
It's actually 50s and 60s retro style furniture.
Wow.
So we actually sourced a lot of it from op shops when we first opened.
Wow.
Old couches and that kind of thing, and retro lamps. My partner and I are both retro fanatics. Our house is 50s, 60s decor. So we just kind of made this an extension of our house basically. So it's like our living room at the bar.
Wow, that's so cool. And what age group do you generally tend to get that patronises your establishment?
We actually probably our most popular demographic would be between 30 and 50. And a lot of older people come in. It's like a trip down memory lane.
Yes.
They recognise furniture, and we also have old school board games and things like that. So yeah, they kind of get taken back in time.
Wow. So this is really a community hub, really, isn't it? People come with their animals, they come to meet their friends, they come to take a trip down memory lane. And at some stage, I'm assuming that you won't have a COVID wall of fame, because everyone would like to forget that as quickly as possible. So how has COVID actually been affecting, or has affected, your business to date?
Well, we'd only been open about 18 months before the lockdown started last March. So we, the first few weeks we tried to pivot, as that's a key word that everyone was using in the business world, and just do takeaways. But because everyone was doing takeaway, the competition was too fierce. So we just ended up closing our doors for about 2.5 months. And that was absolute hell, because we still had the rent and all the other bills coming in, but no way of actually paying them. So it was extremely stressful, and I think sometimes when you're in that kind of situation and you can't do anything about it, you just roll with it. So I just thought, oh well, we'll just have a 2-month holiday and see what happens. And actually started to enjoy it after working on the business so hard every day for a 1.5 years. It was like a nice reprieve. But then obviously it started to really sink in, how are we going to actually survive this? And like a lot of people, we were able to get JobKeeper for us and 3 of our staff. And also, use our superannuation. That's actually how we survived.
Wow.
But then when we had to reopen, we had all the mounting bills, and reopening, then we also were imposed with, tight restrictions about how many people we could have in the venue. So, and people's confidence about coming out was still low. So it's taken, even up until now to even get back to normal numbers.
Wow. So
it's
even
been a real struggle.
Yeah, even though restrictions have been lifted, we're talking right now at the very end of November. Who knows what's going to happen in the next few weeks, because we are ramping up to the 17th, and I'm sure they're going to pull some kind of rabbit out of their hat to ensure us that we're in crisis mode again. But even though restrictions right now have lifted, the trauma, really, that's what it is that the clientele customer trauma is still very much resting heavily on the average Joe, and they're really nervous to come out.
They are. And for us, it's very noticeable because we do a lot of ticketed music events. And we've had some, we do a lot of local acts, but we do a lot of the touring artists like, Tim Friedman and C.W. Stone King, people of that caliber. And so we, sell tickets obviously for that. But we noticed that since COVID, the confidence in even buying tickets to these shows is low because they don't know if the show is going to be cancelled because there's another lockdown on its way or, something like that. So, and the other thing is, with these touring artists, they require a certain amount of people to come to their shows to make it worth their while. And because our capacity has been limited because of these restrictions, some of them come through and, it's not really even worth it. So even the way we got around that was putting 2 shows on in the one night. So having 2 separate audiences, shovel one in, then shovel them out. So we've had to have workarounds like that. And so all of this has just been a whole lot of extra work.
Yes. So you're kind of working twice as hard for hopefully.
Half the money.
Yes. Oh, that's terrible. Wow. Yeah. So you've managed to not actually have to let any staff go because of JobKeeper, but I'm sure even now that the restrictions have been lifted, because the government is so kind to do that for us, they're so generous in that respect. Have your staff kind of gone elsewhere because they need to earn more money and they can't continue to have half the hours or unsure rostering and things like that? Yeah,
we've had a few that we've let them know their hours are going to be reduced, and for the most part, it's hospitality, they're casual, but so some of them have actually just got extra jobs, so but it means that they're not as flexible about when they can work. So it had all those kinds of side issues as well, and it's understandable. You want to have security, and a lot of people have actually left the hospitality industry because it's so fickle now. So they've gone into other jobs or career paths since the lockdowns. So lost, people like that.
Yeah, and not to mention the musicians as well, the fact that you are a live music venue. I haven't spoken with a lot of live music venues since the COVID lockdowns. I know that the musicians were pretty much the first to fall because hospitality was the first to fall. And even before the big restrictions came on, most venues just cancelled their live music straight up. So did you have any big names that you had booked in that you had to cancel?
Thankfully, they all got through before that. And then since then, we've had at the end of last year, we've had some of the bigger name acts. So, but, once again, with a limited capacity. So, basically almost half the capacity that we could normally have. So before, when we could have, say, had 100, 110 people watching the show, it was reduced to about 50. So, they make less money, and we've got less people in the venue spending less money at the bar. So it's not viable at all.
So you're kind of really just keeping your head above the water like a lot of other small businesses, like most small businesses are.
Oh, yes. It's basically just treading water at the moment and still just playing catch-up. So I feel like since lockdown, we're just still playing catch-up.
Well, of course you would be, because at the end of the day, money is made because you're exchanging either a good or a service, and a service is time. And because we've lost 18 months worth of time with spits and spats here and there, you are going to be playing catch up for quite some time. And unfortunately, that's just the state of play for most small business owners, even the ones that pivoted to move online. There was still a period of time there during the pivot that money is lost, and we have to try and make it up somehow. So you obviously did your best to keep within the government regulations and, only a certain amount of people in a certain amount of space, even though they're coming from the same household, they're going to get back into the same car and go back to the same living room and sit at the same couch. Like, it's just so stupid. I don't know how bureaucrats can't think this stuff through. Like,
I know, it's so arbitrary.
It is. It's ridiculous. It is. Anyway. So
time-consuming actually for our staff to even the extra cleaning that was involved, having to write down menus after each use and just all those little things that are time-consuming and takes away from their actual job that they're supposed to be doing.
Wow. So if I can just ask, and it's quite transparent, what feelings do you have right now for those that have been the ones to make these decisions, who are on a salary, mind you, and it doesn't matter to them how long we stay locked down for, they still get paid? How do you feel as a small business owner from people making decisions that actually don't even know what it's like to be a small business owner, particularly in hospitality, because that's a beast unto itself?
Yeah, I feel extremely frustrated and often angry, and I'm kind of gobsmacked that they can be so out of touch. I mean, these are people who visit restaurants and bars themselves. So, I just feel like they have no idea what's really going on, and it's okay to sit up there and, make these directives, but the reality of them is none of them are going to be sustainable. There's going to be lots of small businesses closing down because of these arbitrary decisions that they make. And then, small businesses are the backbones of big communities, and, if they all start, closing down, what are we left with? Just big multinational corporations. So I just think it's a sad state of affairs on a whole lot of levels. Absolutely.
I mean, I did some searching around and always try to use government websites because it's then not as easy to be refuted if you're getting it direct from the government. But it is 98% of people are actually employed through small business. And so you're absolutely correct that small business is the backbone of this country. And if small business fails, the country's economy will fail and Australia will fall. It will fall to major other nations, of which will remain unnamed in this particular podcast. But so I want to take a slight pivot, because this is a real Debbie Downer that I always end up talking about with small business owners, because it really is a down, we're in a down cycle, and it's a man-made one, really. But what do you envisage? Like, what does Toowoomba and Bar Wunder and the dog community and the baby boomers and all those people and the Gen Xers, what does it look like for them once all these COVID shenanigans and lockdown shenanigans and people in bubbles making directives over us that have no idea how hard we're actually hit? What does it look like when all that is out of the way and we're able to get back to not only normal but better than normal, when small business is thriving once more and we can actually pay our workers what they're worth, get better legislation, all that kind of stuff? Just talk to me about your hope for the future.
Well, I think out of all this negative rubbish that's happened, one thing that I have noticed is that there has been a unification of people from all walks of life, people that you would probably never ever associate with in your normal life before this. And I think that's created a stronger community spirit. And I know for myself, I'm on a lot of the Toowoomba private pages that are fighting this, and the way that people are pulling together and helping each other and being supportive of each other is quite like mind-blowing, and I find that really comforting. And I feel like if all of this passes at some point, hopefully in the very near future, that we've built a stronger community in another way, and that we've actually reached out to people that we wouldn't normally, and the way that people are really rallying around each other. I find that really refreshing, and it makes you feel like you're not as isolated. Like, even as a business owner, I haven't really had a lot to do with other business owners until this. And now all our business owners are, networking and talking about what we're going to do and all our strategies, and I find that really comforting to know, you're not alone, because it's often hard when you're going through something like this and you're not talking about it with other people. You feel like you are an island, and that's only happening to you. So I think that might be something positive that comes out of this at the other end.
100%. I so agree with you. I think Australians are at their best when they are standing together fighting a crisis. I mean, we've seen that in the past with natural disasters, fires and floods and earthquakes and whatever that might look like. Nowhere before in history have we had such a mistrust for our own government. And at the end of the day, this is not about whether people are jabbed or unjabbed. This is about fighting against unfair and unsustainable for the nation mandates. I mean, they had so many different people that could have offered solutions other than everybody hide away in a bomb shelter for 12 months because we're so terrified. So what would you have done differently if you were in a position of power? What would you have instructed business owners to do?
Oh, well, I guess if I was in power with the way that I already think about this pandemic anyway, I wouldn't have been doing the fear-mongering for a start, and basically, would have been isolating the vulnerable, but not holding, healthy people hostage and making them take something that's still in its trial stages. So, I mean, so from my perspective, it would have been completely different, and not shut the whole, economy and world down over something that's got a very high survival rate. So I think all of that's been blown out of proportion from the start.
And the interesting thing is that you're not on the fringe when it comes to these comments that you're making. These comments are basically carbon copy over millions and millions of people all around Australia, whether they're coming out en masse, physically, or whether they're speaking behind the scenes on social media. People do share your sentiments almost to the letter of what you've just said. Yeah. So do you have any comments for other business owners who are really feeling like they're an island? Do you have any suggestions as to how, if they're not yet connected, they could get connected with local business groups, anything like that?
Yeah, I think the key is to actually reach out to, there's a lot of, in each city that I think they've got them, and Toowoomba's got its own business groups, plus, we've got a group called Toowoomba Unites, and that's not just business owners, but there's specific business ones as well, and basically getting in contact. I've had a lot of them reach out to me, and I'm actually having a meeting with one of them tomorrow, just someone I would never have normally talked to, and now we're getting together and we're coming up with some strategies of what we're going to do after December 17, and just to be proactive, because we're all writing letters to all the councillors and to the government, the Prime Minister and the state governments, basically just to do any little bit that we can all do, attending the rallies, the protests, whatever it takes, because we need to be a united voice, and we need to have it in large numbers, and we need to have the mass non-compliance so that the government knows that it's not just a few of us, there's a lot of us, and we're all starting to speak out en masse now.
Absolutely. And you don't have a crystal ball, but if you did have a crystal ball, do you think we're going to see this same state of affairs at the end of 2022?
I have quite optimism that there's going to be some kind of backlash at some point that's going to be taken notice of. And I think that because it seems to be there's more and more people joining the flock, knowing that they're not alone. I think people feel more comfortable when there's already a large crowd, and so they're actually happy to get in on it, rather than when it first started there might be 100 turn up to a rally, now there's 80,000. I think that gives people confidence that there is a fight and that they can be a part of it, because people don't like to feel like they're part of the minority. So I think that's changing, and I think because of that, and then the amount of people that are actually now standing up, even people who are probably on the other side of the fence beforehand, and vaccinated or not, and I think a lot of it's from seeing all the injuries that are coming out from the vaccine as well. That's actually bringing on a whole lot of new people. I've actually noticed myself personally. So I think, say this time next year, I reckon that we're going to have a lot more people be pushing against it, and that's why I keep telling my friends, just hold the line. I feel like this is going to have some effect. I don't think they're going to be able to get away with this forever. So whether it's waiting it out or pivoting around it in the meantime, that's kind of what I'm working on over the next couple of weeks. but I feel like it's not going to stay like this forever.
So good. I love that you have that optimism. You and many other business owners that I'm continually speaking with share the same sentiments. The sky is falling, Chicken Littles are getting smaller and smaller, and the eagles and the lions are stepping up and starting to soar and roar. So before I let you go, I'd like for you to just give whoever's listening who might be a business owner just one marketing tip that you have found to be effective when it comes to still connecting with a somewhat frightened consumer base that still wants to enjoy their life, still wants to try and feel like they're normal. Deep down they know that things are not normal, but what's been one marketing tool that you've used that has been really effective for helping your business stay afloat during these COVID times?
I think for us, and this is probably part of my marketing strategies from the start of our business anyway, is that we have a lot of transparency. And so we've basically taken our customers on the ride with us with everything we've done, even from when we were building the bar. We did, the construction of it and took, updated photos and that kind of thing. So people feel like they're part of the journey. And I think through this, the COVID thing, we've been, I'm very kind of blunt in some of my social media posts, and a lot of people like that, and sometimes it's controversial. We've been in the paper quite a few times for our controversy, particularly about this topic, because I actually put up a post a few weeks ago about how we won't be discriminating, which drew all sorts of reactions, and the local newspaper took the story and published it, and that got a whole lot of other reactions, and it polarized people. But we might have lost some customers, but we also gained a whole lot more, because they know where we stand, and we don't ever want to just say things just for the sake of it. We want to be genuine and transparent. So I think that's actually something that people appreciate, particularly at the moment when we're just surrounded by lies. So I think connecting with your customers through truth, and on honesty about, and letting them know that it's stressful for you as a business, and things are a bit difficult at the moment, and here's what we're going to do. And I think that's been actually useful for us as a business.
Well, I didn't have any more questions, but what you've just said has given me a very, very, very poignant question. When I'm talking to business owners, a lot of them are really afraid that if they stick their head out of the trenches, then they will be singled out by the government, by health officers. Now, you have just told me that you have not only stuck your head out of the trenches, but you've also had, an absolute bugle and have played, the awakening call for all of Toowoomba. You've been in the newspaper. You've had a lot of press over this. Have you had a visit from a health officer, and have you been singled out for saying what you believe to be the truth around this?
Not yet. I do feel like I've put a target on our back, but I'm actually okay with that, because for one thing, what I want to do is I want to be able to sleep at night with my decisions that I make, and I want to always be known to stand up for what I believe in. And if nothing else, I wanted it to set a precedent for other small businesses to do the same, because someone has to start it.
Wow.
So, and even as I was writing the post that night, I knew it was going to be a controversial, but it was almost like an impulse control, and I thought, no, I have to do this. I actually have to be able to live with myself and stand up for what we believe in. So I've done that. And yes, we're well known for it now, and I have no doubt probably December 17 we might be the first place they visit. But I'm okay with that, because I want to be on the right side of history after all this. And we will keep digging our heels in.
Good for you. And you talk about being on the right side of history. You're also on the right side of the law. The more I read about it and the more legal counsel I get from people like Australians Say No, Advocate Me, who are actually legal counsel, the more I realise that the average Australian who wants to be fair to all Australians is actually on the right side of the law, and a mandate is not a law. And I think the more people that understand that, the more we'll be able to have legal non-compliance. And that's where it all boils down to, is people are so terrified of breaking what they believe to be the law, and these public health orders, these mandates, are not based in anything that is legal, particularly not our constitution. So is that, having some knowledge of the legal side of things, is that what made you emboldened to post something like that?
It was actually, and I've actually since printed out all the information like what you've just mentioned, and I've been arming myself with all that so that we can be, ready to go, so that we know what where our standing is on this and what's legally mandate or not. So knowledge is power.
Yes.
So that's why it's good to actually have all the facts and not feel vulnerable about what's to come.
Yes. So
and,
good.
As a business too, I should have just said before, we've always, one of our big mottos is we don't discriminate, and it's, basically one of our manifestos, and we welcome all, genders, race, culture, whatever. So it would have been hypocritical for us to now take a discriminatory stance on this. So it just goes along with our business ethos anyway.
That is so good, and probably something that anyone that's woke listening to will not agree with. Come one, come all, especially for a unicorn, but if you're unjabbed, go away.
Exactly.
The hypocrisy of it all I find absolutely astonishing, and I think the not-so-silent majority of Australia is starting to wake up and, well, they've been awake for a long time. They've yawned, they've rubbed their eyes, and they're like, you know what? Not okay. Not okay.
Yeah. And we're doing things that we probably never thought we would. Like, I'm an introvert by nature, and I'm not the type of person who's ever gone to a protest before, and now I've been to 4.
Wow.
So, we're doing things outside of ourselves because we are desperate to make something happen.
And it's not just for yourself, and it's not just for Bar Wunder, although we do wish you all the best with that. And we do. I personally believe that this is not going to last very much longer either, because the sentiments are not going away, despite the threats, despite, whatever. People are just getting more and more and more rallied up. And that's the way Australians are. The harder it gets, because of our heritage, the harder it gets, the firmer we stand. But you're not just doing this for Bar Wunder. You're not just doing this so you can make a quick buck or employ someone, although that is definitely what you should be doing because you're a business owner. But you're doing this for the next generation, and what this actually comes down to, it's actually got very little to do with a COVID or with a quote-unquote pandemic. It's actually got everything to do with a cultural war of whether, as business owners, we're going to have autonomy over our businesses as long as we remain within the bounds of the law, and also having bodily autonomy.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely, because it's a slippery slope once we lose those powers.
Absolutely. And at Fair Business Australia, we're standing very firmly against what's December 17th, which has already been rolled out in the other states. It's not about whether you're jabbed or unjabbed. It is about moving actually towards a social credit system. And we've already seen that roll out in China, and it to horrendous consequences, absolutely traumatic consequences. So we must stand and have legal non-compliance now for the next generation, for our children and for our children's children. Otherwise, we might go in the way of other countries that are certainly not free, not young, not free, not, for wealth there is toil, for toil there is wealth, all that kind of stuff.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's funny when you're in the protest and you're walking past people who are against the protest, I think to myself, but we're fighting for your freedom as well, not just ours. So it's for everyone. So, and I think I get a bit frustrated with the short-sightedness of people going, I just want to just get it so you can just see your grandma at Christmas. What about down the track?
Well, you can see your grandma for the next 6 months until you need a booster.
Yeah, exactly. Then you're one of us.
Well, I would love to have you back on the show in a few months' time to see, what happened to Fiona from Bar Wunder at Toowoomba after the 17th. Did she have a visit from the health officer? What happened with regards to that? How's business going? How's Fiona and her partner going? So I'd love to have you back on the show at some stage. But for those people who are listening who might like to take a trip out to Toowoomba at some stage, or for those living in the area, if they've been living under a rock and don't know about Bar Wunder, do you want to quickly give details on how they can find you?
Well, we're at 424 Ruthven Street, right in the heart of Toowoomba City, and we've got a website, so barwunder.com.au, and it's got all our information and contact details on there as well as lots of doggy photos.
Cute. Well, get along down to Bar Wunder, say hi to Fiona, a very strong, staunch and Aussie small business owner. Fiona, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really look forward to having you again. Best wishes and God bless with your business, and thank you for standing up for Australians now and for the next generation.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and you're most welcome.
Have you got an inspiring story to tell? Register your business now for your chance to be featured on our Fair Go podcast. Ready to lend a helping hand? That's great. You can chip in through the website. Remember, 100% profit goes directly back into local small business. Together, we can rebuild this great Southland for ourselves and the next generation. Go to fairbusinessaustralia.com.au.